Okay, as I was saying, up to this point, we've essentially done everything that we need to do for programming. And at this point, we want some practice. Okay, so I'm thinking that a good way to practice is to do a nice, challenge exercise. Just, I'll be doing most of it. You'll be following along, but we could discuss it. Okay. So we'll write a C program that uses a struct variable, struct, sorry, to store date values, sorry, not to store, yeah, to store date values read in from a file. The file contains multiple date values with each date on one line. Okay. The C program reads these values and passes each array element into a function which will validate if the date, which will validate the date, right? So it seems like a lot, but it's not. Anybody kind of start thinking about ideas, right? Dates are read in the daily, month, yeah, format. Everybody's good so far with this?
Yes.
Yeah, Selena. So everybody's good with this so far? Everybody understands what needs to be done?
Yes.
We have a file. Okay, yeah, with .txt. And inside of this file, we have multiple dates, 20/12/2021. Right. We have 11/11/2013. You have the 2nd of the 2nd, 2004. You have the 29th of the 2nd, 2003. Right? And then we could have the 11th of the 4th, 1992. And we read all of these dates into a struct array. So we know that we're going to have this struct array format, and we will have, of course, the struct values being here. And our struct will look something like this. Okay, so we have it's like def struct D, and of course we'll have int D, int year. And this is the blueprint essentially for storing all of the values that will be inside of these elements here. So this is what's going to go essentially inside here. So when we read in a day, we have the 20th, 12th, 2021. But we're going to pass each of these elements You're going to pass each of these elements into a function, right? Probably we could call it validator. And we could return an integer, but inside of validator, we will take a variable of type, data type, date, right? So this is date. And we'll take a variable of data type date, and this is what we will use to validate. And how about we just say, right, as the last part to this, so we read this value in, dates are read in the day, month, year format, right? The number of valid and invalid dates are written to a file called output.txt. So what it does is that it counts dates, and then it will tell us, sorry, it counts the amount of valid dates, it counts the amount of invalid dates. All right, you all with me on this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see. What was that? I thought I heard somebody whisper you all want to try it on your own. Is that what I heard?
Say, I think that was Casper.
That was Cass. I'm hearing things.
Maybe.
All right. Well,
There was one, sir.
Clement, you are the only one who's telling me that I hear things that I'm not hearing that from me. I'm not hearing things.
Class back up now. Or they quiet.
Well, I
Are
want to
you
say
hearing things? Are you hearing things?
Yes, I hear things. That's like
I
I'm
hear. Oh,
talking to
okay.
you or something like.
Yeah. Whatever they said. Yeah.
I I was just making sure. I was just making sure, right? So maybe my room is haunted or something. So all right. So let me share again with the whole screen this time because we want to go into code blocks and do this. Okay, good. So share the whole screen. Oh, I can. Sorry about that. Share the wrong screen. All right, so we have the code blocks. We know what we want to do, right? We know what we want to do, and what we want to do is that we want to do this. So, oops. So let me just copy this so that I can put it as the specification inside of the file. So we'll save this as 6 nodes. Right. What's a good name for this?
Files date validator.
Yeah, we can name it date validate.c. All right, nothing too fancy. Let's increase the size so we can all read. And let's go. So we start off like normal, include stdio.h, include stdlib.h int main, okay, and where we put this return 0 here. I'm just putting inside of here the specification for what we want to do. Okay, so at least we have that there. All right, so the first thing that I think we should do, and if I was approaching this problem, right? If this was like an assignment for me, where should I start? What do you think is the first thing that I should do?
Maybe from the beginning, sir.
Yeah, but what is the beginning? What is the first thing? What's the setup for this?
To do the thing with the structs first with the inputs.
Okay, so that I'm asking you, I'm going to validate, but all right, so you say to do the struct first, to make the struct blueprint first, essentially, to declare the struct first.
Well, yeah, because you can't really do anything else without it.
Well, I guess you could
Okay.
file. You could read the file and or open
Well,
the file. Like that.
Well, that's it. I think that you all hit the first two things. But I would have started by creating the file and simply reading the information from the file and printing it to the screen. And the reason for that is that at least I want to know that I have the data being taken in, okay? The second thing is that I might have created the struct and then try to take the data that I read from the file and put it into the struct. But I feel like if the best starting point here is to create the file and populate the file with some dates. So we have the 13th of the 5th, 2008. The 2nd of the 6th, 1998. Right. The 29th of the 2nd, 1999. The 17th of the 13th, 1478. The 18th of the 8th, right, 2009, and the 11th of the 12th, 2021. Okay, so we have some dates in our file. Okay, so we can save this file, and I can name this file dates.txt. And because this file's name is dates.txt, and it's in the same folder, I could reference this file relatively to where my C file is. They're in the same folder. And let me explain that a little better, right? So inside of the same folder, which is my lower 6 notes folder, I have dates.txt and I have datevalidate.c. So when I want to reference this file, I don't have to say C:\\\, Valdez, OneDrive, you know, whatever. I could just simply say dates.txt. And because the file that will be created will also be in the same folder. It's going to just automatically reference this because it's going to say, okay, well, if this is the name of the file, I'm going to look in the same folder and ensure that it's there. All right, so I just have it in the same folder. So if I'm going to do some file input output, I need to have my file pointer. All right. And I also want to start off by saying if, sorry, no, not if FP. I want to say FP is equal to fopen. What do I want to open? I want to open dates.txt. And how do I want to open it? I just want to read from this file. All right, so I'm just simply reading from this file. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to say if what? If FP is equal to null. What does that mean? So the first thing I did was to open the file for reading. And then the next thing that I do is to check to see if the file was opened successfully. Okay, and this is if it wasn't. So if it wasn't, print out an error message to the user, right? The file could not be opened. This program will close. Put a get char there to pause screen output, and then put an exit 0. All right, so this exits the program. All right, so, and I always take things a step at a time. So I am either going to see this error message if the file can't be opened, or I'm going to see nothing, because if the file is open, we don't do anything with it past this. All right, so if I run this, I have some, oh, sorry. All right. And I get, from seeing nothing on my screen, I get a confirmation that the, that the file actually opened successfully. All right, I got a confirmation that the file opened successfully because I didn't see any error message there. I could further test this by now checking for a file that does not exist, and I'll get a message saying the file could not be opened, this program will close. So because dates with 2S does not exist, but dates with 1S does exist. So I know that I'm on the right path. The next thing I want to do is I feel like I should read the contents of this file. Okay, so to read the contents of the file, I say while you are not at the end of file end of file for FP. Right, so while in equal to file end of file for FP, what do I want to do? I need to have somewhere to read a line of text from the file into. So I need to have a string to read that line of text into. So char, because I prefer to use fgets. Okay, this actually is one of those situations where scanf might be useful, but I personally prefer to use fget. So this is what I teach you. Okay, I've shown you all how scanf works, but I recommend using fget. All right, and maybe after we get it to work with fgets, we can use it with fscanf as well. I'll actually do both, right? But moving forward, I will be using fgets more than fscanf. All right, so we say char line. Okay, char line. And what does this line do? Sorry, char line. And I have to give line a size. A date isn't going to be longer than 20 characters. So every line from the file, I'm going to read into it. So we're saying while we are not at the end of the file, which is what EOF stands for, we want to read a line from the file. Read a line from the file. And how do I read a line from a file? I use fgets, right? I have to put where I want to store it. I'm storing it in line. What's the size of the buffer? It's 20. And where am I getting it from? I'm getting it from FP. So once I read that line from the file, again, this is me testing now. I could just simply say printf what? %s, and print out line. Right? So print the line of text from the file. Let's see if this will print the lines of text from the file. Yes, yes, it does. It printed all the lines of text and then it finished. Now, I want you all to see something here. When I open this file, if I open this file, notice that in my file, the end of the file, I don't know if you might see it properly on the Teams, but the end of the file is at this one here. That's where it ends. It doesn't go down to the next line. Look at something interesting here. If the file ended down here, underneath, right? If the file ended underneath, then when I run this here, it causes some errors, right? Because there's a delay in where the end of file character is. You all follow me? So it caused my file to be seen. It caused my data from my file to be seen twice when it's only there once, right? But if I move it back up to end right at the end of this last character, and I run this again, notice I don't get that that doubling of the last line. That is just you know, one of those little oddities of programming, but that is something that can probably drive you crazy in terms of figuring out why that bug exists. So when you have your data, please make sure that your line ends at the end of the last data. And that's something that we're going to take a look at when we're doing our SB example, because it's very easy to forget that you don't have to write a \n on the last line of a file. So we will take a look at how to address that as well. Okay? Everybody take note of what I'm saying, yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. I may hear some different voices. I hear Hanson and Emmanuel and Omar enough.
See, I didn't even say anything, sir. But yes, sir.
Oh, that was Porter then?
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that.
Small things, sir. Small thing.
All right. But you see, Clement, I still hear you too now. All right. Jeremy, you good?
Yes, I good.
All right. Kishan, you with me? Is Keishan with me? Okay. Brandon.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're following where we at, right?
Yeah, following.
All right. Alexandra.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we want to make sure we're looking out for that particular error. We don't want the cursor to be down on the bottom here. We want the cursor to be right at the point at which the data finishes. Okay. So let's move on. So now that we know that we have the data and we could read the data, we could go to the second point, which I think is to declare the struct.
Wait, sir, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And you supposed to have like a line where you point the FP command to where exactly the file is. I don't know if I like missing something, but like I don't really seen a line like that here, but the other thing working perfectly.
That's line 17.
But yeah, but like, and it's supposed to have like C users, whatever, you know? Was
Now,
that
I explained that at the beginning of the class. I said that because dates and the location of this C file is in the same folder, it references each other.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So
I get it.
yeah, you didn't have to because dates and the date validator is in the same folder. And of course, that means the executable gets created in the same folder. All right, let me see if I can. All right, so the three of them are in the same folder. So it's now, you don't have to specify the path to them. But if they were if they were in different folders, then you might have to give either a relative or absolute path to how to get to that file that you want to read from the executable file. No problem?
Yes, sir, I understand.
All right, no problem.
Question, sir.
Yeah.
Is there like a limit to how much parts I could do? Because like I was just trying it out and I had like to the folder the code was actually in and it didn't work. But when I put the overarching folder, so like I have code 2022 and I have files inside that. When I put the file in the files folder, it wasn't working. Or when I put it in the code folder, it was working. So I wondering if I have like a limit or something to how much pass I could put.
What might be happening is if you're using an absolute path, right? If you're using an absolute path, then you have to be very careful about names with spaces, etc. inside of there. There may be some instances where spaces can cause problems, especially as the longer the path gets, the more trouble you could potentially bounce up with regards to getting to the name. If it is that you are using a relative file naming scheme, then you see how, like you say, and maybe I should segue off into just giving like an example of absolute and relative naming. Okay, so allow me to just explain this here. I have to switch back to the whiteboard. Right. So say for instance, what you're saying is that you have your, let's say this is your C drive here, right? This is your C drive, yes? And let's say in your C drive, you have, let's say we have Valdez _C as my folder. And this is where my date validator dv.c is. So this is where my dv.exe is. And this is to go back to Hanson's question. If I have dates.txt inside of here, this is why I could just simply say fopen, right, dates.txt and R right here. And this will work because of the fact that they're all in the same folder. Yeah? Everybody with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. But say for instance, and I think this is what Clement is talking about. Clement decides that he has his Clement has his files in a subfolder, right, Clement?
Yes, sir.
Right. So Clement likes to be even more organized, so he puts files inside of here, and this is where, sorry, I put the name of files in the wrong position. Right. This is files here, and you have dates.txt inside of here, right? And so what he was initially doing was inside of there, he was putting in, and this will work here. This, you could put fopen, fopen c:\\Valdez _c // files / dates.txt, right? And then open it to read. But you see how long this is, and this is with a path that has no spaces in the file name. But when you start getting, especially into like users and documents and settings and Clement and whatever, you're going to have spaces in the name. And honestly, once you look up the name in format, you could get it without problems. But the longer your path is, the more trouble it's going to be. What you could do in this instance is that you could put your file name relative to where your file is located, right? So let me just check it because I want to make sure that I'm putting it in correctly. Okay, so essentially you want to locate the file that is relative to dv.exe. So really and truly what you could do, this is absolute addressing. And fopen, right? What you would do here is that you could say /files /dates.txt. And what this means is from this current folder, look into the files folder, right? Do you need the dot here, boy? No, I don't even think you need the dot here, right? This would just be files dates.txt. I will test it out and see. Let me leave the dot for now. Right? But means from this current folder, check in the folder called files and check dates.txt and you go R. And I always say the best way to test this is to actually test it and see if it works, right? And this here is relative addressing. Okay? So let's take a look and see now if we could get files from inside of a folder. This is something that's important, really important, because a lot of programming is referencing one file from another file. Okay. The thing is, you know, let's check it out. So we're back here, and we want to now change in our folder, right? In lower 6 notes, let's see if we create a new folder, and we name this files, and we put this dates inside of files. So we take dates.txt and we put it inside of files. Okay. So now what happened is that we have a scenario like the one that we were looking at in the example just now on the whiteboard, where date.validata is inside here and files is inside here. So if I run this as it is, I'm going to say that the file can't be opened because where it's trying to reference dates in the current folder, it's not going to be able to reference it. I'm really trying to remember relative addressing it. So I'm going to put, I'm just going to put /files/dates.txt, and let's see if that works. And if not, I'll need the 2 dots. All right. Okay, I need the 2 dots. All right. Okay, I've still gotten it. It's still not opening as I want to. All right, let me just check the name of everything that I have. Files, dates.txt. Oh, /. Sorry.
See, I was wondering if it isn't a MacBook user.
All right, so it's /, and
So on macOS you had to put 1 slash instead of 2. So I was wondering if computer magically did
so
it
it's
on macOS.
/. Oh no. Nah. All right, so it got it without the 2 dots. So the 2 dots is where you have to move back up to the previous folder and then check another folder. All right. The 2 dots will work in, I'll explain the instance in which the 2 dots work. So it works right here because I've put it inside of the files folder and now I'm accessing it through there relative to its current position. All right, so it says, okay, from this same folder, check in files and then check in dates. So I'm just going to show my whiteboard again and make that correction because I don't want you to oh, you all weren't seeing my screen, or did I just cancel it?
Oh, we were seeing it before. So.
They just cancel it, sir.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Right. So in this, right, the slashes here, okay, and even the slashes, right, so this is what would be. This is what it would be. Now, say for instance, we changed it again, and this is just to note, this is where the dot comes in. Let's say, for instance, I had the valdez.c folder, but instead of keeping my C files there, right, I kept my C files in a folder called C_files. And I kept dv.c and dv.exe in this folder. Now, what it means is that I'm going to have to go back up to then come down to get to files. That's when I would have to put the // okay? Y'all following me here? Because this now says go up to the previous folder. This is the dot here to say go up one folder to then come back down and find files and find dates.txt. Okay, so you find the file that you want relative to the position of the file that you're currently in. With me? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. But then, as I always say, at the end of the day, if you really can't get into relative or absolute addressing, then keep it absolutely simple and just simply have a file on your C drive, have the file named whatever you name _C, and then just put all of your files inside of here, right? You could have date, you could have date.txt, you could have dv.c, and you could have dv.exe, which is the file that will be created to execute. And in this way, you could always just simply put date.txt R. And because they're in the same folder, they will just reference each other. Okay? So that was a little segue into addressing, right? You could practice with it, you could play around with it and see how you could access your files accordingly. All right, let's get back into the program. All right. Right, it really doesn't matter as it is as it goes here, right? Actually, no, let me put it back where it was initially, because when I send you all the files, I want you all to keep them in the same folder. And I want you all to keep them in the same folder so that, there's little to no confusion. So we just go in with this here. Okay, so we open the file. All right, so we have the file, we have the line read from the file. We print out the lines in the file to make sure that they're working. Good. So at this point, however, I'm going to go into defining the struct. Okay? And the struct is type define struct D. We're going to rename it as the date data type. So the data type, all right, so we name the data type for this struct. Okay. And what is date going to hold? Date is going to hold an integer for day, an integer for month, and an integer for year. Right? So we have day, month, year, and we want to now store the values from the file into something that we create of the data type date. So we have to create a variable of this date data type. Not so? Let me do that down here. So let's do it inside of the main function. So we have date, and we can name this date, right? Date list, or we can name it records. And we could store up to 200 records. Are we going to store up to 200 records? I don't know, but we could store up to 200 records, right? Just more than we need. Okay, this is not 1985. We have more memory than we might run out of with a simple C program. All right. So date record. So we create an array to hold up to 200 dates. And then what do? We have to have an index for this array. So int I, right? So this is an index to keep track of the amount of dates stored. Okay. So we have an index to keep track of the amount of dates stored. And then we go on, we say, what we want to do at this point is we want to now take this information from the line and we have to put it into records. But when we read the information from the line, this here is what? This is a string, not so? Isn't this a string?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I was disconnected there for a second. Okay. Started to worry and get scared. Huh?
It's still running, sir. Don't worry.
All right. Good. No problem. No, I just making sure. All right. All right. So we have this string here that is the line, and we had to bust up this line, and we have to take the parts that we get when we bust up the line, and we have to put those parts into the records in the specific day, month, year, into the specific fields. Not so? How do we do that? If it is, I gave a major clue. If it is that we have to bust up this line into different parts, let me ask a question to Nissa. Nissa, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. What could I use to break up a line into different parts?
So different parts and put it on different lines, that what I mean?
What's that?
Like \n, sir?
No, I'm talking about, I want to break this line up that I have highlighted into day, month, and year. What can I use to break it up into day, month, and year? Okay. Yes, Porter want to help you.
Yeah, they use the string function str top.
Right. We have to tokenize this into different parts. Okay. We have to tokenize this into different parts. So we have to use strtok. And what we'll do with strtok is that we will say break it up according to the what, Andre?
Backslash.
Well, there's a forward slash.
Right.
But we'll break it up according to the slash, yeah. Right? So what we do is that we include now string.h. We include string.h, and we have to set up for the token. So the token, we could use a pointer to get the token. And each line will now be tokenized. So I'm taking off this print line here. And I want to now take this line that I get with fgets, and I want to tokenize it into day, month, and year. So if I go token is equal to strtok, all right, I could pass in line into here, comma, and say that I want to tokenize it according to the slash, forward slash. All right. So I'm tokenizing it according to the forward slash. So I get the day value by tokenizing, get the day value by tokenizing the line read from the file. How do I now get that token into my record struct at the first position? So I now has to be the first position on what? So essentially what I'm going to say is that I'm going to say records at position I dot at position I dot day is going to be equal to what? To what I got from the token. But what is the problem that I am seeing here? Emily. Emily. I read in the token, Emily, and I want to store it in records at position I.D. But what is a potential problem here, Emily? Hola, help Emily.
So, token is a char while day is a int.
Yes. We have types that don't match. So what could we do about that, Ola? We have to.
So we could sit down in a corner and cry about it. Or we could use the function where you could change the string into it.
Right. I think the latter suggestion is the better one, right? Even though as a programmer, at some point you're going to sit down and cry about something, okay? But let me tell you something. I don't want nobody crying about any for loop or any if statement. If you're crying about something in programming, it had to be something worthwhile to cry about, okay? Not the basics. I don't want nobody crying about the basics. I want they crying about if it is that you have to convert one data type to another to then store it into a record. And at that point, have a quick 5-minute cry, dry your eyes, and then do this. Okay? We would say A to I token. And what does this line say? This line is saying plenty. But it's one line. It says, take the day value read from the string and convert it into an integer with the A2 function, and store it in the records array at position 1. Sorry, at position I. That was a lot. So this little line here doing all of that. You take the token, you convert it, you store it in records at position I dot the value for the day. But the thing is, once we do it once, we could do it again for month and year. So we have to get the token again is equal to str.tok. But because we're continuing, we put in null. Okay, so token is equal to str.tok. Null indicates that we're continuing on from the last place where we pull a token. You all remember me saying that in a class before? I feel like I said that already. Did somebody confirm that I said that?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
you
you
said
did.
that.
You did.
All right, good. Right, just wanted that on video. Right? But inevitably 2 weeks from now when somebody comes in, it's like, say, what's this null thing? And I'll be like, on the 31st of January, at 9:11 a.m., I got 2 students confirming that, we did this before. All right? So null means continue on from the last place that was tokenized. So continue the month value. And then we do the same thing. We want to store the month value into the records array. So we essentially have the same thing like last time. Yes, I'm copy and pasting. But instead of day, you want to have month. Okay, you want to have month. And then again, it's the same thing from last time again. But instead of month, you have year. So now we have it, right? And get the year value. Store it to the record. So we have here, we read the line from the file. And that line that we read from the file, we tokenize it into day, month, and year, and we store it into the inside of the records. You have to take the first token, store the first token. Take the second token, store the second token. Take the third token, store the third token. All right? And just to confirm that we did it properly, we could say printf $sign D, comma, $sign D, comma, right? Or let me put dashes to show that it's different now. And $sign D. And what are you printing out? You're printing out records at position I dot D. Records at position I dot month. And records at position I dot year. And then you have to carry I up by 1. Increment I so that the next line will be stored in the next position in the array. Okay? So we increment I so that the next line will be stored in the next position of the array. And at this point, we could test and see if it works. All right? So when we were reading out from the file just by itself, we were getting the whole line as it was in the file. Now when we run it, we're getting it in values, right? Maybe we should put a \n here. So that it all comes out. But these are now integer values in the struct file. And what is important with that, what's important with that is that now you could do some sort of validation on it because it's in a data type that you could do calculations on. You could now check to ensure that the value of the days are between 1 and 31. You could now check to ensure that the values of the month are between, right? You could now do what you have to do in terms of modding to see if you have a leap year or not. You couldn't do that with it reading from the file as it was. You all realize how much, really and truly how much power programmer, because you have the ability to make the data do what you want it to do, right? So that it's now limited just simply by what you could think about in your head. Everybody good with this? Yes, I see I have a question. Kian.
Oh yeah, so you see where you have like records dot like pointer month and you have equals to ATUI. If you didn't need to convert it, what would be that line if they were both like the same data type?
If it were two strings, you would use string copy.
Instead of ATUI.
And if it were, yes, the
okay.
ATUI takes a string and it returns an integer. But if it were two strings, say for instance, you had a name that was in the file and you wanted to store a name, a name, like, store it in a name in a struct, then you can copy it over like that. You want to change the scope and see it in action? You want me to just add a name to the file and we could read it in from the struct? From the file to the struct?
Yeah, so I just had to forget what we had to do last class master, so I was just trying to remember.
No problem. I want us to practice as much things as possible so that we could remember. So let's say for instance, right, and we could do it and we could remove it quickly. Let's say for instance, inside of the file, we had a name associated with the file. So let's say we had dash Andre, dash Kyra, right? Dash Brandon, right? Let me see some more names. Dash Real, dash Ishan, dash John Michael.
Serial is a dinosaur.
Hmm? Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Real was around when they was discovering the new world. Right. All right. So let's say, for instance, now we want to save this information into the name, right? And we can have a name up to 30 characters. Now the next thing that we do is that we can, after we read the last date, let me ask a question to John Michael. John Michael? John Michael? Yes, yeah.
Yes, sir.
What would we need to do to get this name? What would we need to do to get this name into the token variable? What would we need to do to get this name into the token variable?
Not too sure, sir.
How did we get the tokens for the dates?
So is it the that's our next token, but for the dash?
Yeah. Right. And I want to reward it. That's exactly what we do. We just call string toke and put dash because this is where we want to break up the string for the name. Okay? So we can say now token is equal to str along with the nulls, but then we put a dash. And so everything after the dash is a name. Everything after the dash is a name. And so we can now say records at position I dot name, right? We can't equal it. How do we get this token into there? We have to use a strcpy. We will string copy the token, copy the token with the name into the struct array at position I. Okay, so now when we want to print, we could even change the order. We could say first %s colon, and then say records at position I dot name, comma, and I think I crashed it. Right, I think I crashed it somehow. Let me see records at position I dot name, string tuck, null, string copy, right, destination first. Let me make sure I have name as a character. Records at position I dot name. Mr. Valles, what do you have wrong here, sir? See how it comes out. Okay, so it's printing out when I take out the name. Hold on, we'll solve it.
Is name in the
We have
struct?
what?
So did you put name
Yeah,
in?
name is in the struct.
Oh, I didn't see. Okay.
Yeah, I added it to the struct. Right, so let's see. Okay, so it's no problem reading the token. All right, so at this point, let's just make sure that the token is coming out properly, right? So %s token. It should print out all the names beforehand. Ooh, for some reason, it's not taking that name, right? I'm not getting that token to print out, which is a problem. So,
I recall last class, right? You were talking about something like when you reach the end of the line of text you want to read. I don't know if it's something different we use, but I remember like specifically you're talking about like, well, after this specific token, then I would just read everything else. So I don't know if that have to do with anything.
You repeat that?
See, last class you were talking about like when you were reading stuff, and like when you reach the end of the text, instead of like token and then you read, you just read everything else, which is, I don't know if it was a special command say, or if it was just the same thing that you have here, but I remember it was like specifically same talking about like when you reach the last bit of code on it. Yeah.
Trying to remember what I would have said about that. When you reach the last bit of code, what?
It's like a special condition or something like that. So maybe say if you something with the null and the, you know. So you
No,
could
no,
probably
the null is fine.
the slash to a forward slash and see if that might help.
Let me try a separate character here. Because I'm wondering if it's a problem. Let me stay with my slash.
See, I realize what did they say?
So I
Yeah,
also realize what it is.
John
what is
Michael.
it?
What dash in it
So
say?
what's look at the print of line served?
What?
Mm-hmm. Which line? This one? No, but it worked just now. I think the
Yes,
double
it
slash
just
caused
it.
the double dash caused the problem.
Yes, say John Michael name had a dash in it.
Yeah, and then also I think now with the names, the line needs to increase to about 50. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm keeping the slash inside of here because John Michael and his name with a dash kind of caused some problems for me there. Okay. So I'm copying this back into the records and look now what happens. But look at what happens to everybody's name that was on a line. Are you referencing the backslash n, Clement? You notice that everybody's name kind of gets pushed down except John Michael's name. Why is that? Because in the file, look at where we finished John Michael. Is there a backslash n here? No, there isn't, but on every previous line, there is a backslash n. So when we read in the file, we have to get rid of that backslash n. How can we do that? How can we get rid of the backslash n? We have to, after we read in the file, we can say if line at position strlen for line -1 is equal to backslash n, line at position strlen for line -1 is equal to \0. What did I do just now? I said, if when I read in the line, the last character on the line is a new line character, change it to an end of line character. And now, again, everybody's name is on the same line as it should be, right? Everybody's name is on the same line as it should be. Why? Now I'm going to run it again and show you all that. I'm going to take out this line and show you all the difference. So it's off. Look at how my data comes out when I don't remove the backslash n from every line. Why is that? That's because at the end of here, there's essentially a backslash n here, backslash n here, backslash n, backslash n, backslash n. That happens when I read in this line. And I don't want it there. So when I read in the line, I just check to make sure that the last character in the line is not a backslash n. Now remember, you're dealing with an invisible character. Okay? So this is something that you have to know. How are you going to know? Well, Mr. Valdez is telling you right now. Okay? So just be mindful that once you have data that is underneath the line that you're currently reading, when you're using fget, you read in that \n character. So it would be wise to get rid of it and get rid of it as early as possible so that the data that you're dealing with is just pure. Okay? It's pure data. That when we run it, we can just simply print out what we have to print out. All right. I'm going to do now. You can do so, right? But I do encourage you to get some water and like a little snack or something before you do that. All right. Any questions before we go off onto break?
So I didn't hear the last part of what you said, but assuming that you said we are going to go on break. But
yes,
you said that like in the code say you said like if the string length, right, is line. So I did not know that you could like that the string length actually affects the actual string length. So like when you use the function, I didn't know it could actually affect it. So could it?
When you use yeah, because remember string length returns a number. So essentially this here is a number, which is the length of the string, and -1 is the last usable character. Okay? So it comes like when hold on. It comes like when I say, let's say we have the string, right? Jesus is Lord. Okay? If I have that string inside here, if I put this in ternary, JESUSISLORD. Let's say, for instance, I have this string inside here, and I have this \n here, and then this \0 here, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The string length that I get, right? If I say str, string length str, is going to be 13. STRLEN, sorry, str is actually going to be 14. It will give me the value of 14. So if I now say that if I now say str at position strlen for str -1, right? What am I going to get? I'm going to get this character here. This is going to be the character \n. Because the string length is 14, position 14 is the end of the string character. So the last character here is going to be this. But I don't want that. So that's why I say turn it into a \0. All right, but I took up 5 minutes of your break. So I don't want to take up any more time. Let's talk about it when we come back, okay?
Yeah, no problem. So we come back like at 50 then, like 9:50.
Nah. 9:45.
So I agree. We should come back with 9:50. So I find that's a good time too. So.
Y'all using up break time to argue this?
Excuse, sir, I was told that you were calling me. Sorry about that, but I wasn't by the computer because mommy ended up calling me for something.
All right, that's all right, Emily. Just I can't remember what it was for, but it's good to know that you're back here. See you all at 9:45.